When you're feeling these feelings, how do you then bounce back and get back to being Jay-Z?
I don't know. This is the first thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
Actually, it was just like, all right, man, we played enough defense. 2026 is all offense.
There's been heavy investigations going on. I've told you guys about these stuff a long time ago. I was confused. In the last few days, I have gotten, and it can be towards me, but it is in a roundabout way trying to threaten the people around me. There's people outside supposed Grand Wizard's house taking random pictures of him. Oh, we got the pictures now. They've been circulating these pictures.
BuzzBuster is back again with some Jay-Z gossip. Hip-hop has been absolute chaos this year. The genre has moved at full speed, with major drops, non-stop conversation, and enough speculation to keep the internet busy every week. J. Cole stepped in with both an album and a mixtape.
Or with Tony Busby and Jay-Z. So remember, Jay-Z sued Tony Busby and his firm for defamation after the lawsuit was dropped with the woman who claimed that Jay-Z and Diddy raped her when she was 13 years old back in 2000.
Who lied about Jay-Z.
Exactly. And the case was dismissed. It cannot be brought up.
Giving fans plenty to unpack. Drake added even more to the pile with 2 separate projects, Tabibdi and Maid of Honor. On top of that, Iceman finally arrived after all the waiting. And now the rumor mill keeps pushing one more possibility. Kendrick Lamar may be getting ready to make his move too. Still, none of those releases are really the focus here. The person worth watching right now is Jay-Z. What makes this so fascinating is that hip-hop has never really had many figures like him.
Z has an understanding of the magnetic power of some of these symbols, the pentagram, the eye and the pyramid, the obelisk, and he uses them as an artist, but people spin out all kinds of...
We're talking about someone who has reached elder statesman status in a culture that usually moves on fast. Rap tends to celebrate the next thing, the younger voice, the newest energy. Yet somehow Jay-Z remains everywhere at once. Even without dropping fresh music, he still feels deeply embedded in the center of it all. That kind of influence is rare. His presence doesn't rely on a new single or a surprise album. Instead, it shows up in other places. You see it in media coverage, you hear it in interviews, you notice it in headlines, in business moves, in the quiet mechanisms that shape the industry behind the scenes. Whether it's through a label, a distribution network, or simply the reach of his name.
Jay-Z. He's looking at Jay-Z like he's a peon.
I'll take 500K, not a dinner. I never could learn from none of y'all.
And that's echoed by this bar from Whisper My Name where Drake says, yo, I'll take 500K over to dinner with Jay-Z. Because, you know, there's a whole meme that people used to say, yo, would you take $500,000 or would you take dinner with Jay-Z? And then some people for real seriously would answer, well, I'll take dinner with Jay-Z over $500,000. If I have dinner with Jay-Z, I can ask him about business. I can pick his brain about business. People used to say this. So Drake is playing off of that meme like, yo, I'm taking 500,000 over dinner with Jay-Z because Jay-Z can't teach me nothing. And there's also the island hopping bar from Too Hard for the Radio
Damn, y'all was really island hopping back then. Now your names got redacted.
that we mentioned earlier that I think could be about Pusha T or Jay-Z. Their names were kind of surrounding the Epstein.
His impact keeps surfacing. He may not be the loudest voice in the room, but the room still shifts when he enters the conversation. That's why paying attention matters.
In hip-hop, there is always something happening on the surface, but the real story is often taking place underneath. Every major headline can hide another motive. Every public move can serve a private strategy. It's not just about songs and chart positions. It's also about leverage, alliances, narratives, and timing. The board is always changing, and the smartest players are rarely focused on only one move at a time. Viewed that way, Jay-Z becomes even more interesting. Because when I look at the situation, I get the sense that he's exhausted.
Tell you a story. I did it one time. I did it one time.
Under
And-
what?
No,
notion?
but listen. Superstar rapper wants to meet the powers to be. It's the only person on the earth I introduced to the powers to be. They get him a situation.
Not weak, not irrelevant, just tired. Tired in the way someone gets after carrying influence for years while being pulled into every possible angle of public conversation. There's a certain weight that comes with staying powerful for that long, especially in a space that constantly watches, questions, and interprets everything you do. Some of that fatigue likely comes from the noise that never seems to stop. For one thing, there have been the lawsuits, the kind of legal drama that can follow public figures and create endless distraction, whether it deserves attention or not. Even when those situations are described as frivolous, they still demand energy. They still create headlines. They still become part of the story, whether you want them to or not. Beyond that,
hook him up. The man don't want to pay the
Commission.
I was mind boggled. I never look at this guy the same no more. I see him and I just like, and I'm like, and when they say, yo, what's up with,
Can I ask a couple questions?
you know how Jay-Z says it? He says, yo, what's up with your man?
Yeah.
That's my man now. No, it's hip-hop's man. Jadakiss hip-hop man. Method Man's hip-hop man. Fat Joe's.
That's your
I
man.
try to look up, no, it's my man who didn't pay.
There's the mythology people attach to him. Jay-Z has spent years being labeled with all kinds of wild ideas, including the Ode Illuminati talk that refuses to disappear. At a certain point, even rumors that sound absurd can be draining simply because they never go away. When you've reached that level of fame, people stop talking only about your work. They start building entire fictional versions of who they think you are. Now add one more layer to all of this.
A lot of people have suggested that Drake may have sent direct shots at Jay-Z. Whether everyone agrees on that or not, the perception alone is enough to make the moment more interesting. In rap, tension doesn't have to be confirmed to become real in the eyes of the audience. Once fans start connecting lyrics, interviews, and timing, the conversation takes on a life of its own. And if those observations are accurate, it's hard to imagine Jay-Z enjoying that.
And like that whole Busby,
The civil lawsuit that was dropped, dismissed.
that shit took a lot out of me. I was angry. I haven't been that angry in a long time. Uncontrollable anger. Like if you don't put that on someone, like that's the thing that you better be super sure. It used to be like that. Like you have to be super sure before you put those kind of things on a person. Especially a person like
For someone who has already built a legacy, expanded the empire, and survived every phase of the industry, being pulled into fresh waves of speculation and subtle challenges probably feels less entertaining and more irritating. That's what makes this moment worth studying. Jay-Z may not be speaking loudly right now, but silence from a figure like him can say just as much as a public response. There's another angle here too. Jay-Z may simply be done carrying other people's weight. If that's true, the real question becomes impossible to ignore. What move is he preparing to make next? Better yet,
When you're feeling these feelings, how do you then bounce back and get back to being Jay-Z?
I don't know. This is the first thing I'm doing.
Yeah.
Actually, it was just like, all right, man, we played enough defense. 2026 is all offense.
has that move already begun? The clues are stacking up fast. He sat down for 2 major interviews, one with GQ and another with the New York Times. On top of that, he's lined up 4 performances, including 3 dates at Yankee Stadium, and he's also set to headline the Roots Picnic. That's not the schedule of someone fading into the background. It looks much more like someone stepping back into the spotlight with purpose. Now, the obvious question is what happens once he gets there? What exactly is he planning to say, do, or signal through all of this? Before getting into that, there's something important to establish first. If this theory is going to hold up, it needs evidence. Not vibes, not guesses, not internet speculation. Actual proof. That's why these clips matter. Pay close attention to the tone. Listen to the edge in his voice, the tension underneath the words, the feeling that something unresolved is sitting just below the surface. That kind of intensity doesn't usually show up by accident. It suggests frustration. It suggests pressure.
I've found out that supposedly out of this theory, that is no way that I am this popular as a media personality, that Drake is as popular as a rapper and sells as much. And also because allegedly people like even Nicki Minaj and some folks like that go against some of these people. You could kind of guess who I'm talking about.
Most of all, it suggests someone who has not let certain things go. When people reach that point, they often stop playing defense. They stop staying quiet. They stop absorbing hits without responding. Instead, they shift, they push back, they reclaim control. That's the energy being hinted at here. Anyone familiar with Jay-Z's music already knows this isn't exactly out of character. His lyrics have long reflected a mindset that keeps score. He has described himself as petty. He has referenced payback. He has repeatedly framed conflict as something he doesn't just forget, but something he remembers, studies, and eventually answers in his own way. That pattern has been part of the public persona for years. Because of that, this moment feels bigger than a random media run or a few live dates added to the calendar. It feels like positioning, like preparation,
like someone arranging the board before making a very visible move. Every interview, every appearance, every headline starts to look less isolated and more connected. Keep watching the way this unfolds. The message becomes even clearer.
There's been heavy investigations going on. I've told you guys about these stuff a long time ago. I was confused. In the last few days, I have gotten, and it can be towards me, but it is in a roundabout way trying to threaten the people around me. There's people outside supposed Grand Wizard's house taking random pictures of him. Oh, we got the pictures now. They've been circulating these pictures.
When you stop filtering it through outside commentary and just listen to what he's saying. At a certain point, you don't need anyone else to interpret it for you. The words tell the story on their own. If you still think this is being overstated, then don't take it from me. Take it from him. The message is direct. 2026 is all offense. That is not passive language. It doesn't sound cautious. It doesn't sound like someone retreating. It sounds like a declaration.
More importantly, this isn't being framed as something that might happen someday. The suggestion is that it's already underway. The tone has changed. The strategy appears to be in motion. What we're seeing now may not be the build-up to the response. This may be the response. One major sign of that shift is the legal action already on the table. Jay-Z has countersued Tony Busby and is seeking a substantial financial outcome from that case. That matters because it turns the situation from reaction into action. It shows he isn't just responding to pressure, he's applying some of his own. Taken together, the interviews, the performances, the public messaging, and the countersuit all point in the same direction. This doesn't look accidental.
There's people harassing, some of the people who do memes and stuff like that, and who clip for us, go into their houses, harassing their girlfriends, mamas. And at first I was like, all right, I'm the public guy. Like, I want all the smoke. You come over here, you're gonna meet 4 killer Rottweilers and 50 guns. But people,
it looks coordinated. It looks intentional. And if that reading is correct, the next phase may be far more aggressive, far more visible, and far more calculated than many people expected. That's why this moment deserves attention. Something is changing. The tone is sharper, the timing is louder, and the moves are becoming harder to ignore. Whether people agree with the strategy or not, one thing is becoming clear. Jay-Z doesn't seem interested in sitting quietly while the narrative is written around him. He appears ready to take the pen back. That accusation was only the beginning. The bigger story seems to stretch far beyond that single claim. Take a moment to consider what DJ Akademiks appear to be hinting at. Nothing here should be treated as confirmed, but the suggestion matters, especially when it lines up with other pieces already being discussed. Once you start placing those pieces next to each other, a larger picture begins to form.
A moment ago, you heard Charlemagne suggest that a lot of hidden details would eventually surface. Not long after, Akademiks spoke about people in his circle allegedly being watched and photographed. On top of that, Jeremy Hecht brought up reported financial dealings involving Akademiks and another CEO, something that had already been mentioned during the stream. Viewed separately, each detail might seem small. Put together, they point in a very different direction. What it suggests is that someone, or possibly several people, may be closely examining what has been happening online. This does not look like random noise anymore.
Achieved the same thing as far as like sparring with music, with collaborations more so than breaking the whole thing apart.
Yeah.
It could stand it before because there was no social media and there was no thing, and you had the battle and it was fun and then you moved on.
Right.
It feels more like a coordinated effort to track behavior, gather information, and connect public activity to private relationships. That is why this situation cannot be reduced to ordinary rap drama. Earlier, I said this battle would unfold across multiple arenas, and that idea matters even more now. The people involved are not operating in just one lane. Their influence stretches far beyond music, and that changes everything. Jay-Z is a perfect example of that. He is not simply an artist with a microphone and a catalog of records. He also leads Roc Nation, a company tied to major business interests and high-level partnerships. His reach touches branding, major live events, and even connections linked to the Super Bowl and the NFL. Those are massive institutions, and being connected to them means the stakes are much higher than a typical lyrical back and forth. Because of that, anyone expecting a straightforward response on stage is probably looking at this the wrong way. This is not the kind of conflict that gets settled with one surprise appearance at the Roots picnic or one dramatic moment at Yankee Stadium. A public performance might grab headlines, sure, but it would barely scratch the surface of what is really happening here.
What makes this so unusual is the number of spaces it appears to involve at once. Music is only one layer. Media is another. Business relationships are part of it. Public image matters. Corporate ties matter. Reputation matters. Once all of those elements are in play, the strategy changes. Moves become quieter, more calculated, and far less obvious to the public. That is why the conversation keeps circling back to patterns instead of isolated incidents. One person makes a comment. Another person references surveillance or documentation. A reporter mentions alleged transactions. None of it exists in a vacuum. Each new detail adds pressure and raises the question of whether something bigger is unfolding behind the scenes. At this point,
Right now, I don't know if it could stand it with the technology that we have.
Because it takes up so much oxygen.
It takes up so much oxygen.
Yeah.
And now it's just like every day they're just
Like
trying
they're
to
still
take,
talking about it.
It's not just talking about it. Not like, yo, this song I like this.
Yeah.
No, it's like trying to tear down the people's life.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like trying to, wreck this guy's marriage or this guy's relationship with his child. And it's like, I don't know, man.
the most important thing is not to jump to conclusions, but to recognize the scale of what may be developing. The clues being mentioned are not pointing toward a simple music industry disagreement. They suggest a layered conflict involving influence, information, and power. In other words, this is more complex than a diss track, more strategic than a viral moment, and much larger than a stage performance. What we are watching may be a dispute playing out across business, media, and culture all at the same time. And if that is true, then the public has likely only seen a small fraction of the full story so far. This feels deliberate. Here's my read on where all of this is headed. Jay is too experienced to get caught flat-footed, and he's already positioned himself ahead of the narrative. He's been clear from the start. This year, he's moving aggressively. He also made another thing obvious. He has no interest in turning this into a traditional rap clash where artists trade records back and forth. A song-for-song showdown was never likely, and at this stage in Jay-Z's career, that kind of public exchange doesn't really fit.
Still, don't mistake that for silence. The conflict isn't disappearing. It's just not going to play out in the most expected way. Instead of a straightforward battle on wax, the tension is likely to spread across multiple arenas, showing up in moments, appearances, statements, and carefully chosen moves that hit from several directions at once. There's already plenty surrounding Jay-Z that people are watching closely. A number of issues have been building for a while. The Dame Dash situation still lingers in the background. Kanye's remarks have added more fuel to the conversation. On top of that, Drake recently sent bars that many people took as pointed and intentional. None of this exists in a vacuum. Each piece adds pressure, and each one raises the stakes around whatever Jay decides to do next. If history is any guide, Jay-Z usually doesn't rush into the noise. He tends to wait, choose his opening, and strike when the attention is highest. That has been one of the defining patterns of his career. He understands timing, he understands presence. Most of all, he knows how to create a moment that instantly shifts the conversation. That's why I don't think the response, if it comes, will arrive in the form people are expecting. It may not be a full diss track. It may not be a long public explanation. More likely, it comes when he steps onto a stage, grabs a microphone, and turns a brief appearance into the headline of the night. Maybe it's a freestyle. Maybe it's a visual cue. Maybe it's just a few sharp lines delivered with that calm, polished confidence he's known for. However it happens, the message will be intentional. Once that moment lands, it probably won't be subtle. He knows exactly how to send a direct shot without looking rattled. That's part of what makes it effective. He doesn't need a full rollout to make people feel the impact. A well-placed line, a carefully timed appearance, or a slick remark can do more than an entire week of online back and forth. Drake, of course, has built a reputation for being incredibly calculated in his own way. He understands pettiness, subtext, and pressure better than almost anyone in the game. He knows how to keep a conversation alive and how to make small jabs feel enormous. That's part of why this gets so interesting. If Jay responds, it won't be because he's trying to out-Drake Drake. It'll be because he's choosing a lane that fits his own style. Colder, more controlled, and built around authority rather than volume.
So the key thing to watch isn't whether Jay jumps into a messy public battle. It's where he chooses to make his presence felt. That's where the real story probably unfolds, not in a predictable exchange, but in a strategic move that reminds everyone he still knows how to command attention without chasing it. In other words, don't look for a loud scramble. Look for a calculated statement. Look for the moment. Because if Jay-Z decides to answer, he's likely going to do it in a way that changes the temperature immediately and leaves no doubt about who the target was. When it comes to subtle messaging and quiet power moves, Jay fills that role for his era. If he has a point to make, it won't go unnoticed. Expect headlines, commentary, and a wave of stories across the media landscape. At some point, HOV is going to reassert exactly who he believes he is.
He's already told people plainly. In that interview, he made it clear, "I'm HOV." That statement says everything about how he sees himself. It reflects his mindset, his status, and the way he believes he should be viewed in the culture. To understand this situation, you have to start there. Now look at Drake from the same angle. His self-image has changed too. He doesn't seem interested in being framed as the younger guy anymore. That phase appears to be over. What we're seeing now is someone trying to move beyond the label of just being a rapper. His business choices point in that direction. There have been signs of him exploring independence, or at least reshaping the structure of his current deal. On top of that, he's expanding into other ventures and building a broader empire around his name. That shift matters. It suggests Drake sees himself on the same level as anyone in the room, maybe even above them. In his mind, he's no side figure in anybody else's story. He appears to believe he belongs at the very top, standing shoulder to shoulder with the biggest names in music and business. Put those two mindsets next to each other and the tension becomes obvious. On one side, you have a giant who feels untouchable. On the other, another giant who believes he has earned the same stature. Neither one seems built to take a step back. Each looks at the other and sees a rival, not a superior. That kind of dynamic doesn't usually stay quiet for long. Whenever two massive figures carry that level of confidence, the atmosphere changes. Even if nothing direct is said at first, people start reading into every move, every appearance, every quote, and every headline. The energy builds, speculation grows. Before long, the entire rap world starts bracing for a moment that could shake the culture and send effects far beyond just the artist involved.
What makes this even bigger is that it doesn't stop with Drake. There are more players orbiting the situation, and each one adds another layer of pressure. Media figures help shape the narrative. Academic voices and commentators give it intellectual framing and public analysis. Legal names like Tony Busby bring in another kind of seriousness. Former business associates such as Dame Dash add history, tension, and unresolved context. Then you have someone like Kanye West, whose public comments can instantly amplify any conversation and push it into an even more unpredictable place. That's why this feels less like a simple disagreement and more like a possible turning point. It's not only about two artists competing for status, it's about influence, legacy, perception, and control over the story being told. Every surrounding voice has the power to stir the pot, redirect attention, or raise the stakes. In a moment like this, reputation becomes everything. Public image matters, history matters, ego matters. When figures this large begin measuring themselves against each other, the fallout rarely stays contained. The music industry watches closely, the media rushes in, and fans start choosing sides almost immediately. All of that is what makes the situation feel so loaded. This is bigger than one person versus another. It's a clash of self-belief, power, and public identity. And when forces like that collide, the entire rap game feels it. A lot is happening at once, and sooner or later, every piece of it is going to be confronted. For now, the only real move is patience. Everyone needs to sit tight, pay attention, and watch how this unfolds.
The Roots Picnic is coming up this weekend, and while that event matters, it probably won't be the place where everything gets laid out. That setting doesn't fully belong to him. He's appearing as the main attraction, yes, but it still isn't his personal platform. Because of that, this performance may feel more like a preview than the main event. The moment that really stands out is Yankee Stadium. That's a different level entirely. It's his city, his energy, and a stage that carries far more weight. If there's ever a place for a direct response, a statement, or even a carefully calculated message, that would be it. Something is likely to be said there.
one way or another. Maybe it comes through the music itself. Possibly it shows up in subtle lines, coded messages, or carefully placed references that say plenty without needing to explain everything outright. There's also the chance that the response plays out through interviews, headlines, or larger media conversations. However it happens, it feels increasingly clear that this situation is moving towards some kind of public moment. Right now, the bigger picture is what makes all of this so fascinating. The strategy around Jay-Z seems to be shifting in real time, and the rollout doesn't look as controlled as it once did. What once felt tightly managed now appears to be opening up in ways people didn't expect. That's why so many eyes are on what comes next. Another major question is whether music is about to enter the conversation in a serious way. There are plenty of possibilities. It could be a short project, it might be a full album, maybe it's a loose collection of freestyles, a surprise mixtape, or something that lands without much warning at all. Nothing is confirmed, but it definitely feels like creative output could be part of the response.
That possibility changes everything. When an artist of that level has something to say, music often becomes the sharpest way to say it. A song can do what a statement cannot. A verse can stir more discussion than a press release ever could. If new material is on the horizon, people will be listening for every line, every tone shift, and every hint about where his head is at. At the same time, there's already a larger battle happening in the public conversation. The media side of this is active and is only getting louder. Narratives are forming, reactions are building, and speculation is spreading fast. That's part of what makes this moment so intense. It's not just about one appearance or one response. It's about the broader story being shaped in front of everyone. There's a lot to break down and even more to question. Every move feels like it could mean something. Every silence feels intentional. Every appearance, every lyric, and every headline adds another layer to the mystery. Now, I want to hear your take. Does Jay-Z step up and address all of this directly? Or does he stay above it and let the noise pass? Are we heading toward a major musical release? Or is this all going to play out through public messaging and media strategy instead? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because there's a lot to unpack here, and this story feels like it's just getting started. Keep your eyes on the full board, because this goes far beyond rap alone. What looks simple on the surface usually has several moving parts underneath, and every layer tells you something new about how the industry really works. The closer you follow the details, the easier it becomes to recognize patterns early and stay one step ahead instead of reacting late.
Plenty of people only focus on the songs, the headlines, or the obvious moments. The real story, though, often sits behind the scenes, in the strategy, the timing, the relationships, and the business decisions shaping everything you see. Once you start paying attention to those hidden angles, the conversation opens up in a completely different way. If you're enjoying the breakdown, show some support by liking the video, dropping a comment, and subscribing to the channel. Anyone watching on mobile should also tap the hype button, because that extra push can help this video reach more people through the algorithm. Every bit of engagement helps keep these conversations growing and puts more eyes on the bigger picture. There is still a lot left to unpack, and this discussion is far from over. Here, the focus is on understanding the business behind the music, the decisions, the structure, and the strategy that drive the culture forward.